Shelley was also pretty, and often traversed the apartment scantily clad, which made her a welcome guest in my eyes. Our building was so old that it still had keyholes on doors, and I may have, a time or two in front of Shelley's room, incurred a crippling injury that required me to stoop and turn my head in the direction of her door's keyhole, whereupon I might have seen some things I wasn't supposed to. The problem with getting caught and claiming injury, of course, is that you have to fake that pain for at least 45 minutes afterward. Ultimately, Shelley was the UN to our Serbia and Croatia, which really brought unity to the household. But Robin also changed. She became less confrontational and began to look at me as a fixer-upper instead of a punching bag. Perhaps realizing her little brother was entering pubescence with a target on his back — I was the definition of nerd in training, non-athletic, smallish, generally timid, and quick to spout know-it-all information as a defense mechanism — she actively worked at helping me socially. She even took me to my first concert, the Thompson Twins at the Ritz, and dressed me to boot in teen hipster duds from the clothing store where she'd started working. Although she still enjoyed making fun of me, my early teens were marked by a lasting détente at Jon Cryer. War crimes would not be prosecuted. Trade talks were negotiated. The occasional diplomatic slight was forgiven. Of course, much of the reason Robin and I had a trial by fire as fractious siblings was because, as latchkey kids, we often had the run of the house. We became particularly independent during my preteen years, when Mom began to taste success with the musical I'm Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road, which Mom wrote the book and lyrics for and starred in, with music by Nancy Ford, her longtime collaborator. It's worth taking a moment to note that it's no small feat to make a living in New York as a playwright, much less a female one, and Mom's been at it for more than 50 years now. The 1970 rock musical she wrote with Nancy, The Last Sweet Days of Isaac, won multiple theater awards, and in 1972 they opened a show on Broadway called Shelter. Getting My Act Together was autobiographical for Mom. It told the story of an actress approaching middle age who finds new life singing songs about female liberation, and in 1978 the legendary theater producer Joe Papp put it up at the Public Theater. When the New York Times panned it in a truly rotten, dismissive review, I vividly recall finding my mom crying by herself in her darkened bedroom. She worked so hard on it, and it was such a personal story, and we had been enduring some lean financial years for a while. I remember Mom sitting us all down at the table and giving us the grim news that there would be no allowance for a while. My dad, who by that point had moved to Los Angeles and was a struggling actor with a new family, didn't have the money to pay child support, so it was all on our single mom. In that light, knowing that the Times' influence was enough to kill a show outright, the news did not look good for our getting out of financial straits. But Joe Papp, unbowed and perhaps reminded of how much preview audiences loved it, let the show run for 6 weeks. By the end of that run, Getting My Act Together had found itself a passionate audience. The show was selling out on word of mouth alone and would go on to run for almost 3 years off-Broadway, one of the longest such runs in that era. The success, though, meant that Mom's show, and because she starred in it, Mom, were in demand around the country. She acquired a manager. Well, acquired is not exactly accurate. Getting My Act Together's lighting designer, an affable, bearded, beret-wearing mensch by the name of Marty Tudor, approached her one day and said, "Hey, can I be your manager?" Mom replied, "I don't know, I've never had a manager before." He replied, "That's cool, I've never been one before." Marty, who used to design light shows for concert acts like Barry Manilow and had done enough tours with megastar Meatloaf to refer to him simply as Meat, was tired of the rock and roll life and was ready for a career change. My mom was willing to take a chance. Where money was concerned, there was finally some breathing room, but she was also away a lot, to Los Angeles to meet with interested movie people, to Chicago to star in the show for 3 months, then to other cities that wanted to run Getting My Act Together. When I look back on that stretch of my youth, when I was 15 and Robin was 17, I never equated Mom's extensive traveling with the frowned-upon notion that as a parent she wasn't around, or that she was being irresponsible. She was doing what any self-respecting, hard-working man or woman would do when the fruits of his or her labor met with success. They worked at growing it. If you were a playwright, the chance to see your play done all over the country was what you lived for. It's there in the title of her show, for Christ's sake. She took that